There are moments in life that change everything. When you look back, you realize it all started so ordinary, but that ordinariness, it never stays the same. My story began just like that. My stepson Ethan and I were spending an ordinary evening in the living room. After Daniel's death, silence had taken over this house in Havenwood for 2 years. I had been trying to piece together the missing parts of my life, but I hadn't noticed Ethan had grown up, or maybe I didn't want to notice. We were watching a movie, action-packed with bits of romance here and there. Ethan was sitting next to me, sprawled on the couch, arms casually stretched out, looking like he owned the place. It was the first time I saw him like that. His shoulders were broader, his jaw more defined. He wasn't a boy anymore, he was a man through and through. But I quickly pushed that thought out of my head. He's my stepson, I reminded myself. Yet that night, I had no idea those reminders would fall short. As the movie went on, the scenes got more intense. Ethan leaned slightly to the side, resting his arm on the back of the couch, edging a bit closer to me. It felt like he was about to say something, but he didn't. For a moment, we locked eyes. In his gaze, I saw that depth, and right then, a sense of unease settled inside me. Part of me tried to brush it off, to normalize the moment. It's nothing, just a movie, just a misunderstanding, I told myself. But my feelings, they weren't lying to me. During one of the romantic scenes, I felt his breath brush against my cheek. Without even realizing it, he had moved closer. His hand on the couch was so close to my shoulder that I couldn't tell if he was about to touch me or not. Inside, I was a mess. Being this close to him made me uncomfortable, yet strangely, it also sent a thrill through me. That feeling terrified me, but everything was happening so fast, I couldn't even keep up with my own thoughts. Amelia, he said, his voice low and a little hesitant, I want to tell you something. I turned to him, my heart racing. Yes, Ethan. I asked, but my voice was shaking. I want to thank you for everything, he said. After Daniel died, you've always been there for me. You didn't have to, but you did, and because of you, I never felt alone in this house. That's because of you. His words hit me hard, but the intensity of the moment left me feeling even more vulnerable. Of course, Ethan, I said, forcing a smile. I'm glad you're here. But he didn't take his eyes off me. Me too, he said slowly, his voice sounding deeper. Seeing you here, it makes me feel at ease. The air between us grew heavy all of a sudden. He must have felt it too, because he pulled his hand back a little, but his eyes never left mine. In that moment, I didn't know what to do. My heart was pounding like crazy, and my thoughts were all over the place. I tried to maintain the distance between us, but a spark had already ignited in my mind. He wasn't a boy anymore. That truth hit me that night, and it was a truth that would change everything. That night, Ethan's approach toward me was different, warmer, more emotional. For years, I had been like a mother figure to him, but the Ethan sitting next to me that night was no longer that little boy. At 19, he was tall, broad-shouldered, and undeniably handsome. But he was still my stepson, wasn't he? And that thought was what I clung to as I tried to suppress the confusing feelings stirring inside me. But I couldn't have known that it wouldn't stop there. When Ethan looked at me that night, the depth in his eyes left me completely defenseless. As I wondered why he was being so emotional and warm that day, I didn't realize just how close we were to something happening that night. And this story, which started that evening, would change the course of my life entirely. If you enjoy hearing confessions like this, join my channel, subscribe, and turn on notifications to support us. Trust me, this story will be one of the most thrilling ones you'll ever hear. A few days had passed since that night. Ethan was acting different than usual. At breakfast, he talked more, and his eyes barely left me. He had started helping around the house in a way he had never done before. Amelia, let me help you, he said one morning when he saw me sweeping the floor. He took the broom right out of my hands and started doing it himself. I looked at him in shock. He had never done anything like this before. "I know you handle everything in this house by yourself," he said, his eyes fixed on mine. "You're just one woman. Someone needs to help you here." Those words both surprised and oddly moved me. "Thank you, Ethan," I said, trying to steady the slight tremble in my voice. But inside, a warm wave spread through me. The way he had so plainly acknowledged my loneliness struck a deep chord. Later that day, while I was cooking in the kitchen, I felt Ethan's eyes on me. He was standing behind me, leaning against the counter, just watching. But these weren't the kind of looks I was used to. His eyes wandered over my body, my hips, my back, my hair. At first, I thought I was imagining it. "No, Amelia, you're overreacting," I told myself. But I could feel the intensity in his gaze. I did my best to act normal, but deep down, I couldn't deny the slight thrill I was feeling. To be honest, I liked it. It had been so long since I'd felt someone's attention on me like that. When Ethan left the kitchen, I couldn't help but go to the mirror. I looked at myself in the reflection. Even in my 40s, I was still attractive. I had a slim waist, full hips, and a toned body thanks to regular exercise. My light brown wavy hair fell gracefully over my shoulders, framing my face in a soft way. My breasts, well, they seemed to have forgotten my age. I hadn't looked at myself like this in the mirror in such a long time. In that moment, something stirred inside me. Something was changing. I could feel it. Ethan's behavior became more obvious as the days went by. His eyes never left me anymore. Sometimes it was a casual touch, sometimes just a simple word, but I started noticing that he was pushing the boundaries between us. And maybe the worst part was, I found myself enjoying it. After what happened in the kitchen that day, as I lay in bed that night, one thought wouldn't leave my mind: Ethan wasn't a boy anymore. He had grown into a mature, handsome man. But I never could have guessed how much that realization would excite me. And I knew, very soon, there would be a moment where all of this would spiral into something impossible to untangle. One evening, I came home after being out, and the sight that greeted me left me breathless. Candles everywhere, flowers, a beautifully set table, and a romantic atmosphere. More than anything, I was captivated by the birthday surprise Ethan had prepared. At first, I couldn't believe it was for my birthday. This level of effort seemed more like something you do for a lover. When Ethan came into the living room to greet me, I immediately understood why I'd thought that. He was wearing a white shirt and black trousers. I'd never seen him like this before, so put together, so charismatic. It was hard to take my eyes off him. "I wanted to make this day special for you," he said with a faint smile. Then he handed me a box. When I opened it and saw the dress inside, I looked at him in shock. It was a stunning, bold red dress with a soft texture, a deep open back, and a high slit. The moment I saw it, I felt both excitement and hesitation bubbling up inside me. "You bought this for me?" I asked, surprised. "Of course, it's your birthday, and I wanted you to wear something special." "I'm sure it'll look amazing on you," he said, his voice calm but his gaze intense. I took the dress and went to my room. Standing in front of the mirror, I felt the soft red fabric brush against my skin, and I experienced something I hadn't felt in a long time. As I slipped the dress on, I realized I hadn't worn anything that showcased my figure this beautifully in years. My long legs peeked elegantly through the slit, the curve of my waist and the smooth line of my back perfectly complemented the dress's design. I looked at my reflection and, after a moment of silent observation, I smiled and whispered to myself, "This is crazy. I'm dressing up for Ethan. But wow, I really do look stunning in this dress." I studied my reflection more closely, facing truths I had ignored for years. Yes, I was in my late 40s, but this dress made me feel like I was in my 20s again. My skin was still smooth, my light brown hair fell softly around my shoulders, framing my face with elegance. And inside, I felt a thrill I hadn't felt in a long time. Taking a deep breath, I left the room. When I walked down to the living room, Ethan's eyes locked onto me, and he didn't look away. The way he stared at me made everything even more surreal. There was no missing the admiration in his gaze. Smiling, I said, "I owe this to you. The dress is incredible." But I quickly looked away, feeling self-conscious under Ethan's intense gaze. "I was right," Ethan said, his eyes still glued to me. "You look absolutely stunning in that dress." Hearing such a direct compliment, I felt my heart race, but I tried to brush it off, replying, "You're exaggerating." Ethan guided me to the table he had prepared. There were 2 wine glasses, and a bottle of red wine sat elegantly in the center. For a moment, I felt like I was in an entirely different scenario. This didn't feel like a birthday celebration, it felt like a romantic dinner. But I didn't say anything, because the atmosphere had completely drawn me in. Ethan opened the wine and poured it into our glasses. Soft music played in the background, and the wine left a warm sweetness on our tongues. At first, our conversation was about the past, about Daniel and the changes in our lives. But as the evening went on, I noticed Ethan slowly steering the conversation to something much more personal. "Amelia," he said suddenly, his voice soft but carrying a serious tone, "how can a woman like you be alone? I just don't get it." I locked eyes with him, completely at a loss for words. "Ethan, lonely isn't always a choice. Life has a way of leaving you alone," I said, but his gaze held something deeper. "You don't have to stay alone," he added, lifting his glass to his lips. "A woman like you has needs, Amelia, and I'm here." The words caught in my throat. What he said touched me far deeper than I was prepared for. I raised my glass and took another sip, but my eyes stayed on Ethan. This birthday had stopped being just a celebration, it was turning into something completely different. When Ethan set his wine glass down, he never took his eyes off me. "Amelia, you look absolutely incredible. I wanted this night to be special for you because you deserve it," he said, his voice low but firm. I gave a shy smile, twirling my glass in my hand. "That's really sweet of you to say, Ethan, but sometimes I wonder why you're putting in so much effort," I said. Ethan raised an eyebrow slightly and replied, "Because you deserve it. You're not just a stepmom, Amelia. You're so much more than that." His tone carried a depth that both surprised and deeply moved me. For a moment, neither of us looked away. The silence between us only intensified the tension. My heart was pounding, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything to break the moment. Ethan slowly stood up from his seat, walked around the table, and came to my side. Resting his hand on the edge of the table, he leaned toward me. "Amelia, you don't deserve to share your life with someone who doesn't appreciate you. No one should overlook a woman like you," he said. "Ethan," I began, but I had no idea what to say. The words were caught in my throat. Just as I was about to speak, Ethan leaned in closer to my face. "I can't hide how I feel about this," he said in a whisper, and then his lips met mine. The kiss completely threw me off balance. I felt a passion, a warmth, a connection I hadn't felt in years. Ethan's hand slid slowly to my waist, pulling me closer to him. What had started as a moment of shock quickly turned into something I couldn't help but respond to. Our lips stayed locked for what felt like an eternity, as though the world had come to a halt. But suddenly, reality hit me. I slowly pulled away from Ethan, completely out of breath. This isn't right," I said, my voice trembling. "Ethan, I need to go to my room," was all I could manage to say. Ethan looked at me and took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, Amelia, but I couldn't stop myself from feeling this," he said, his voice calm yet still carrying a fire within it. Without saying anything else, I stood up and hurried to my room. As soon as I entered, I shut the door and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. My heart was racing, and I tried to piece together what had just happened. I sat down on the edge of my bed and looked at the mirror. Even my reflection seemed unable to shake off the weight of that moment. How did this happen? I whispered to myself. The whirlwind in my mind, mixed with the effects of the wine, slowly pulled me into my bed. As soon as my head hit the pillow, the emotions and weight of the evening overwhelmed me, and I drifted off to sleep. But the night wasn't over yet. Sometime later, I heard a faint noise. My eyes fluttered open, and I saw a shadow at the door. The door was slowly opening, and in the dim light, Ethan's silhouette appeared. "Amelia," he whispered softly. His voice was low, but there was a certain determination to it. My heart started pounding again as he walked into the room. "In the quiet of the night, I know I shouldn't be here, but I can't help it," he said, closing the door behind him. In that moment, the look in Ethan's eyes told me that this night wasn't over. The determination in his gaze and the tone of his voice completely consumed me. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. I knew I needed to say something to him. As my eyes locked onto his, years of suppressed emotions suddenly bubbled to the surface. "I know I need to give you an answer, Ethan," I said, my voice trembling but laced with raw honesty. "I feel the same about you, and I want you." The determination in Ethan's eyes completely captivated me. The emotions I had buried for years were no longer something I could hide. My heart raced in my chest, and I knew I had to respond. Taking a deep breath, I steadied my shaking voice. "I know I need to give you an answer, Ethan," I said, locking my eyes on his. "I feel the same way, and I want you." As those words left my lips, the mixture of surprise and happiness on Ethan's face gave me a surge of courage. A soft smile played on my lips, and I closed my eyes for a moment to gather myself. "Please, before I lose my nerve," I said, my hands moving to my shoulders as I slowly slipped the thin straps of my dress down. The fabric slid off my body and fell to the floor, leaving me standing there. As Ethan's breath caught, the admiration and desire in his eyes only fueled the excitement coursing through me. Without hesitation, Ethan stepped closer to me, and our lips met again. His kiss was so full of passion that it felt as though the entire world had stopped. His hands slid around my waist, pulling me tightly against him as the kiss deepened. Finally, he gently guided me toward the bed. When we reached the edge, Ethan's hands carefully lowered me onto the mattress. As my eyes stayed locked on his, the weight of him over me made me surrender completely. Ethan bent down, quickly pulled off his shirt, and tossed it aside. Then he placed his knees on the bed and leaned over me. The determination and intensity of desire in his eyes only fueled the fire inside me even more. His fingers slowly slid down my cheek, finding my lips again. In that moment, the boundaries that had been built between us over the years completely vanished. At that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in over 2 years. I had fully surrendered. As Ethan continued, I gripped the sheets tightly with my hands and closed my eyes. I let myself get lost in the tension and excitement coursing through my body. When I opened my eyes and looked at Ethan, seeing his flushed face and broad shoulders, I couldn't resist. I reached my hands to his back, and in a fleeting moment of excitement, I dug my nails into his skin. Ethan must have liked it because his heartbeat sped up even more. I placed my hand over his chest, feeling his racing heart, and at that moment, Ethan couldn't hold back any longer and let himself go. We had surrendered to each other, and Ethan, breathless, lay down beside me. That day, while talking about romantic things, I had fallen asleep. After this day, my life was going to take a completely different turn. I had just experienced a night where I was happier than I had ever been, and in that moment, I realized this was only the beginning. Make sure to listen to what happens next because this story doesn't end here. Just stay tuned. If you've made it this far, I know my story has deeply touched you. There's so much more to share, and you won't want to miss any of it. Don't forget to hit the follow button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment about this story.